Okay, it's Gimmel Tammuz, and I have like a stack of stuff in my mind that I want to do, but I want to start straight away with the big issue, and hopefully we get a chance for two of the smaller issues. And this in Anash.org, they had a story this morning. They found a newspaper in Riga. The the writer was very amused that there is a young student in Berlin in the university, and he's the son-in-law of the Lubavitcher Rebbe, and the Lubavitcher Rebbe made him Rebbe for Tishrei. The Frierdiker Rebbe was not feeling well. It was something, and he told the Rebbe that he has to verbring. And they said he's a young guy, and he looks like a modern guy. Umet gehulet net verbringt wer Rebbe, and everyone had a really good time the whole Tishrei in Riga. Riga. Yeah, met gehulet, and he verbringt like a real Rebbe. But whoever it was, like, thought it was really funny. He's a student in philosophy in Berlin, and he's acting Rebbe. Okay, but the Rebbe would the Rebbe was whatever his father asked him to do, he did. There was not shy. The Kabbalah was unbelievable. Even though the Rebbe was quite reserved, the Rebbe wanted to be out of the limelight. His devotion to his father-in-law was unbelievable. He was a chassid like you don't find such a thing. The devotion. There's a picture also that they just found, a picture of the Rebbe at 1929 or something, and it's in the train station in Warsaw, and the Rebbe is holding on to the hand of his father-in-law. They also ended up, they just find it in the newspaper. It's beautiful, beautiful, beautiful picture. So one of the things that Frierdiker Rebbe asked the Rebbe to do as soon as he got to America is that people would write 770 Eastern Parkway. They had questions of Judaism. So he asked them that he should write answers, a teshuvah, like, a fancy teshuvah, a teshuvah like a teshuvah. He should publish them. There was a booklet that was published eventually with 12 teshuvahs. Some of them are minor stuff, not so. There was one of the teshuvahs that we once learned together, the story of the Piata from Adavran. It was a sikha that the Frierdiker Rebbe said in Lakewood, and then he said in Chicago, a story, people were laughing, and they said, how could the Frierdiker Rebbe say such a story? The Rebbe wrote a teshuvah, like, wipe the floor with the people that are laughing. These people are clowns. But one of the beautiful teshuvahs the Rebbe wrote was a teshuvah, I call it teshuvah sigeres tchisa mesim. People always have questions about tchisa mesim. The reason I'm picking this sigeres is because it's Gimmel Tammuz. So it's remarkable that the one of the first footnotes in this tshuva is always with the Rebbe. It's kedai to follow the footnotes. He quotes a tshuva from the Veheshiv Moshe. Veheshiv Moshe. Veheshiv Moshe is the Yismach Moshe, the first Atma Rebbe, and it's the first tshuva he wrote, the first tshuva, and his tshuva is addressed to someone in Varsha, and it's all about the Yonam of Tchisa Meisa. I'm just giving it as an example to see that there was a young man there, and his Goina Satsuma. How would do you think the average Satmar Chassid knows the first Tshuva and the Hesha of Moshe about Tchiyas Mason? It was like Svardim. We had Svardim back then. They never got that safe in his hand, and he must have went through it from cover to cover, and he remembered that there's some Aleph, Hesha Moshe, about Tchiyas Mason.
If the Satmar Hasidim will know the Biach.
So the story of the first Satmar Rebbe.
He was grandfather of the first document.
Grandfather, yeah. It wasn't Satmar. It wasn't Satmar yet, but he was one of the first that I born him in Hungary. Yidden were very, very plush to Yidden in Hungary. Very, very plush to Yidden. And he was he made his oilum should become Zayn from Yidden and Zayn Yidden. He made a lot of takonas. He had a daughter, and he wanted to marry off his daughter. He was a young Talmid Chacham, and he was a chassid. He was a chassid of the Choyzer Lublin, Talmud the Maggid the Mezritch Chavik, the Alter Rebbe. So I'll only marry your daughter if you go to my Rebbe. What wouldn't he do to marry off his daughter? So he went to the Choyzer, and as soon as he walked into the Choyzer told him everything that he was thinking as he's thinking it. And he became a chassid. Even though he was a mistake, he became a chassid. Just in the Sefer, there's a new print of the Sefer. It's a beautiful, beautiful print. There's this in the end of in the forward of the Sefer. He said that when he passed away, he said right before he passed away, he said, "If I knew when I was young that Mashiach is not coming so quickly, I would pass out from Agmas Nefesh. The Avish that tricked me and made me think that Mashiach is about to come. However, he said, when I go into heaven, I am not going to rest until I bring Mashiach Tzidkenu."
Oh.
There's a talk from the Sat Maruv in Shaina Rabbe Tavshin Chabbeis, where he said, how come my great-grandfather made a promise and he didn't keep it? And so he said, we know that there were several tzaddikim that made such promises. One of the tzaddikim is Remeir Ramishlan. He made the promise. And he came to heaven and he said, I'm not going to Gan Eden until Mashiach comes. It's in the chain. He's standing. He's clogging up the hallway. And they can't get you next. He's standing there, the mayor of Probishtan. You can't just, what are you going to do? You're going to go push him? So there's a big commotion. They didn't know what to do. So they went to consult with David HaMelech to ask him, what can we do? So David HaMelech came with his kinnah, and it was so sweet that a mayor started walking to hear the music. So it's a bislach, he walked him all the way to the middle of Gan Eden. And the Sat Maru said that my Zayda, what happened was they gave him a podium. My Zayda used to like to darshan. They gave him a podium, he should darshan the Soida Satoira. As soon as he started darshaning, he saw Mayonas Chochm opening up. So they told him, don't worry, you're going to darshan. As soon as you finish darshaning, we'll bring Mashiach. He's still darshaning. The Rebbe, our Rebbe, one of the final Fabrengens that we had the schools, the Rebbe said the story. The Rebbe said there were tzaddikim, and the Rebbe mentioned the Rebbe said that what's the Eitzah? The Eitzah is to make a neder al das Rabin. And that's ein lo yafora. That's what the Rebbe said in one of the last Fabrengens we had with the Rebbe. And it was very clear that Rebbe was talking about himself. If you look at the Sikha, you heard the Sikha at the time, it was very, very clear that Rebbe was talking about himself. So there's no question that today in Gimmel Tammuz, the Rebbe is V'yanua Amos Asipif to help every Yid that comes up with Lakosha. We see that there's thousands of Yidden that are going to the oil today, maybe 100,000 Yidden, and we see unbelievable miracles that are happening. That Tzaddikim, Ziyata B'chayai, the Zoya says that the Alter Rebbe explains in Tanya, and Igeres Zach, and Igeres Teshuvah, and Igeres Igrish Kodesh, that a tzaddik is made up of three things: a Amun Ava V'Yida. And after the tzaddik passes away, it's easier to access the Amun Ava V'Yida from a tzaddik because it's not contained in a guf. And all the people that are connected to tzaddik gain from the tzaddik Amun Ava V'Yida. There's no question that today is a beautiful day to connect to the Mila. The Zohar says the Mila b'feidish itma. That the Fedish, that we know that the tzaddik intercedes, but it's also the Mila D'Shmaya, and including in B'yichud, the Rebbe was biggest thing in life is the Inyan of Bias Mashiach Tzidkenu, and therefore it makes a lot of sense that the Rebbe would write such a long tshuva. Igeres Tchias HaMesim. The other time in history we saw that there should be a tzaddik should write a long essay about Tchias HaMesim is the Rambam, because there were Yidden that were responded, Yidden and Teiman, and he wrote to them a letter called the Geras Tchias HaMesim. So, okay, with no further ado, let's start reading the Teshuvah together. Yeah, there. Sorry, start with the question. The person writes, I'd like to get an explanation. It's a principle of faith. It's a principle in faith. And it's the second bracha in Shemana Esrei. And a person says, I don't understand I don't understand it well. And number two, in you call it Teshuvah Mason, Vashoras Nefesh Kiyuma Dava Movement, B'Yes Nefesh Ruch, Chelak Alakav, V'Dem Chelak Lakol. Person says, I understand that the soul is eternal. Must say the soul is eternal. If you believe that the soul is a Chelak Alakav Emal, and you must believe that the Eibush is eternal. So you must believe that the Neshama is eternal. However, Ma Machriach Shetokam L'Guf, L'Tchiyah B'Guf Gashmi Dafka, Ma Ma'ilo is that. What makes us think that it must be that the neshama, which you must believe is eternal, but why would you have to believe? Why is it important, Judaism, to believe that the goof has to be eternal? Who cares? Why is it so? Why is it so central? Why does it center stage in Judaism? Why is it an ikar to believe that? What's the mile on this?
That's just a question.
And if we do,
No,
what difference it make?
Well, he would be telling that the Rebbe, whether he was wrong, whether he was Jewish, whether he was a scientist,
I don't know.
only had that the Rebbe dealt with so many different people.
That's
something.
The question is why the goof eternal?
Yeah.
Why is eternal?
Right. So the truth is, we'll learn soon. There's a machloikis. Rambam and Ramban. The Ramban holds that the goof is eternal. And Chassidus says that the halach is like the Ramban, like the yes.
So this question is not about the neshama stuff, but good.
Yeah. But similar to the Chazal, we find that Chazal Dibra v'chokru b'shayr Seilu spoke about this. Allah Shmuel Chazarim and then a couple of Kaimas. In Lahavi La'alam Mixas v'Masham Chazal, but I want to bring a little bit about what Chazal talk about this. But the seventh view. Fisha Dorish to the Sashaylas. Shmithilish Lataritz Kushir Samasain and Malama Badabrim Klapa Ganam Kalu. The Dilam Masha Nemar Bachol Yom Areni Mama Mamun Shlem Mashit Chisa Mason. If a person says every morning at any Mama Mamun Shlem Mashit Chisa Mason, it's good enough. Chabad doesn't say every day these words, but it's fine. It's the same thing. In Boy Betaina Mashkos of Rambam, Pirish Mishnah is Olam Haba. There are people that are thinking about Olam Haba. Or sheyavdol ben atachlis ben asiva maybe latachlis. Aber mashe shoylem ha'am kulo ha'amoim v'mevinim ha'echi kum ha'meisim ha'rumim ha'kbushim. Im yisha osher adal. This is people ask silly questions. They ask questions. The Mashiach is going to come. I'm going to stand up from my grave. Am I going to be naked or dressed? The Rambam says, what do you care? When you get there, you figure it out. Am I going to be?
That's a good question.
That's a good question.
Think about it now.
Exactly. So he says like this: The Rambam The Rambam, is not complaining why people are asking this question. We find that many places the Shas deals with these questions and all kinds of questions. And talking this question itself, the Gemara talks in Sanhedrin. The Rambam is upset. Why are you not asking about what's the beauty of Olam Haba? What's the necessity of Tchiyas HaMeisim? What's the mile of Tchiyas HaMeisim? What's the whole idea of Tchiyas HaMeisim? You're asking naked, dressed, war, not war, peace, rich, poor. Why are you asking only the trivial questions and not the main things? You get it Tchiyas HaMeisim, Shlemashma. Also, Pirish Mishnah, now the other nice Brak Tris and Mesa Vadi come out there. Omna Maelo Abash, who does an Amam Shamus Bavat, Achel Tis Mason, Shukula Gamri. The Ramam says that people are dealing with the Tris Mason, but the Elam Haba, which according to him comes after Tris Mason, people forgot about it. So you see that what's bothering the Rambam is that people are talking about trivial things and forgetting about the Ikir. That's what bothers the Rambam. But obviously, a Yid has to learn Torah, and this is a legit question. And like many questions that the Rebbe is going to deal with, if the neshama had the neshama, which we believe in Gilgulim, so the neshama was nisgalgal 10 times, so which body is going to wake up at Chisa Mason? And so on, so such questions that people are asking. So, and tackle the question: are they going to wake up naked or dressed? What's going to be with Meisei Chutzlaretz? What's going to be with the story the Gemara says about Tzar Gilgul Mechilas? All kinds of questions. But the Rebbe says that the Rambam didn't bother him that people ask this question. For sure, you should ask and you should learn and you should figure it out. The Rambam just was bothered why we would just ask the trivial questions and not deal with the neshama of what Chisa Mason is about. That's why I'll answer your first. It's usually Chazal say you answer al Rishon al Achar. The saying because the Rambam says that you should Chisa Mason, we should deal with the main question first, and then the trivial questions. So even though you first asked one shaila, then a second, I'll answer your second first, because that's the Ikka shaila. What's the mile of Chisa Mason? Then I'll answer dressed, naked, rich, poor, 10 bodies, one neshama. How do we cut up the baby?
Rabbi, what the reason in Tzahal, if somebody get killed, they buried him with the clothes, with the blood, with the
Yeah.
soldier.
Why?
Soldier, when they get killed,
All kadosh, right?
he's buried with his clothes. Also, yeah, this I don't know. It's a
מה ההכרח שתחיס המעצם תילו נשמה בגוף גשמי דווקא, ואיזה מיילה יש בזה? לא יש, רק מתחיל להביא עם תחיס המעצם, השפריץ היובל, ובמה התחיל בול נשמה בגוף. We have to understand what the Indian of תחיס המעצם. תחיס המעצם בחיי אדם שני עניונים. מדרג בשלמס מן האדם. You can look at it in two ways. It's the shlemus of a person. That's the ultimate of, how the machine operates. That's where the machine gets to. And then there's Madrege Kabbalah Schar. That's the Eibshtik is reward on Hagik Kfir Tzayin Boyre. The two things are not two separate things. It's not like there's two things in Tchias HaMesim. That's the shlemus of the person and also a schar. Ki hine Adam nivre beifen shesalam shliva l'shliva b'sulam ha'shlemus when it's established that all bazeh Aidei Torah mitzvahs sheskar vel shlemus at kama shu beicholta gavod zatzma zoymer ozer alam alamal gam nehersa b'cholta. A person has to do as much as they could spiritually, and then from heaven they do the rest. Then a person is mekadesh himself a little bit, and then mekadesh him harbe malamayla. And then the serus latata, and then the serus laela acher serus latata. There is the Yid does a service, and then there's, you do as much as you could do, and then the Rebbeinu Shalom does the rest. It's not being used. Give it to you. No. He's saying after the person does the 100% what that's a different thing of Ishtadl. It's not what I thought. No, it's not the same. It's not the same. It's after a person. In general, there's the idea that all the mekadosh are you do as much as you could do, and then malamayla they'll do the rest, and that's what Chassidus says. Huh?
Why do you need that?
Why? Because a person tries to sanctify himself, but a person is limited. Is a human being, and he had limited powers. So if a person uses his power to the max, and he sanctifies himself this much. Malamayla, they sanctify the rest. So the same thing at Tchias HaMesim, there's this thing that a person and in general, Klal Yisrael do as much as they could in their avodas Hashem, and Malamayla, they sanctify them the rest. How do you measure schar? How do you measure schar? Like what? When you say it used to be that a rich man in America was called a millionaire. Soon you're to buy a slipper, you're gonna need $1 million. So if a person's a millionaire, it's nishta groisa chashivas. So you can't measure. So there's not. How do you measure the toif? Dugma Dover, Apoel Makabel Beschore, Lechem Lechel Beged Lilbish. Talmud Amashamash Rabba Verav, Beschori Lamdenu Chochma. Talmud Amashamash Rabba Verav, Yerenu Tachlis, Briosef, Saderech Boyelech, Bede Lagir Tachlise. Basher Rechush, Ruchni, Nala Yosem Rechush Gashmi, Voisha Nitzchi, Nala Vishneim, Arimovich, Limit Chochma, Uschar Godel Yosef, Melechem Lechem. V'gedoyle Oid Mimenu, Hiro, Orchas Chaim, Bechaim Nitzchem. If a person gets, he works and he gets bread for his working, or gets money, then there is a Talmud that is Rebbe's teaching him Chochmah. Then there's a Talmud that the Rebbe is not just teaching him Chochmah, but he's teaching him a way in life, and Avodas Hashem, by Yid. So that's the Tachlis HaToiv. In a Kama Madreges BaToiv, Hema Musogim Lonim, Ein Shein Musogim Lonim. Hatzad HaShavah Shebehem, Shaguf HaNefesh Mesaneges Behem Val Yodem. V'kim Shaguf HaNefesh Nebrem Val Gvul, Harigam Atanik Vulihu, Timken Gam Aschar Mugvul. That a person is limited, so the pleasure that he can experience is limited. L'mayla mekulim sh'odem mekayim mitzvahs boirer v'hoylach b'sdacher v'hoylach mishtalim. Asheroz arei kiyum mitzvah zu machaber oisa mitzvahs mitzava mitzvah boirer bilti al tachtos a bilti bal gvul. A person does a mitzvah is connected with the Eibishter, and the Eibishter is bli gvul v'chibur v'tzavtza sh'odem anivre ima boirer ein lach atayv l'mayla emenu. So therefore, this connection of a person who is Bal Gvul to the Eibishter Bilti Bal Gvul, they cannot be any better than that in this world. So the truth is that the mitzvah itself is the biggest schar. The Chazal say schar mitzvah mitzvah. The Chazal says that the mitzvah itself, that a Yid is tzavtza v'chibur, ata tetzavet, the Yid is connected to Eibishter. So that's the ultimate. Before we go further, there is a footnote. The first footnote. The Rebbe says, "Bekama makom mesmuva bebiurin etchis amesim beguf dafka. She'asher k'moy shoysa avoda kim Torah b'mitzvah sedei nefesh aguf yachdat v'ofen sheshmoka lebchira. K'moy kein gam kibul aschar tzorech lisa deishneim al derech mamer azal Sanhedrin tzadik aleph aleph." The Gemara says in Sanhedrin tzadik aleph that there's a mashal of a chige v'suma. The Gemara says for guf nefesh, it's a mashal from Levi HaKodesh, that there was a king that wanted that had this unbelievable garden, incredibly rare fruits, and he wanted the guards to keep eye on it, but the guards themselves are constantly stealing. So he took a chigir and a suma. So this guy can't, the summa can't see where it is, and the chigger can't run. But the ikid is that the chigger would see if a ganav will come, and he'll tell the summa, and the summa will run after.
Sitting on the shoulder.
Oh, no. But then the chigger and the summa decided to gamve, and the chigger and the summa, one went on the shoulders of the other one, and the gamvet. So the melech said, you know what? I'm going to punish you this way. I'm going to put the chigir on the summa, and I'm going to whip them together, and that's how I'll punish them. And the guf and the neshama, each one says I couldn't do it myself. So the Eibishter says I'll punish both. So the Rebbe is saying that if you learn that Gemara, so obviously the Chazal, you milah Torah is 500 times. So when you learn the Gemara, you understand that that's the pshat of Tchis HaMesim. That a Yid never slugged it out in this world for 70, 80 years, for 90 years, for 120 years. Now, the neshama will have pleasure in Gan Eden. And where's the body? 6 foot under. It's not fear. So it has to be Tchis HaMesim. But if that was the truth, and that was the ultimate question, so first of all, then okay, so maybe we should wake up the goof for a couple of days, a couple of weeks, a couple of months, a couple of years, and then they can send them back in the grave. And the Iker Shaila that ever says, if that was the ultimate, that answers the side point. Why does the goof deserve it? It seems from Chazal that this is the tachlis HaTorah, especially the way Chassidus, which goes like a Ramban, that says that that the tachlis is Tchias HaMesim, and the Olam Haba is ultimate is Tchias HaMesim, not like the Rambam who says. So the truth is, if you said like the Rambam, you could say this. But if you say the Ramban, but the Tachlis Atoiv is the Shemit Tchias HaMesim, the question is, why is this the Tachlis Atoiv? Okay, let's continue. Chesed Hashem al Odom Hoidos Bayar Eitiv Sadera Chalabol Shlamus and Sun Meres Kater Loshnaram Keps Kol Chad Merek Rishon Shemei Chayev. Shemovin Ashishlam Skol Davar Fe'er Midrash Shoyev Masan Ala Tachlis Shebishvil Nivra. The shalemus of everything is when it gets to its ultimate. If you created if you created a plane that could go supersonic speed. So if it's going at regular speed, you didn't get to the tachlis. The tachlis is it should get to that it could fly unbelievable life and nifla. So the same thing when the Eibishter created everything in this world, that there's a she'ifa to get to the tachlis, and the shleimus when you get to the tachlis. Tama bria b'chlal bria s'adam b'frat the tachlisim of nation is havakadosh baruch hu l'isla dira b'tachtonim. Why did the Eibishter create the world? Because he wanted dira b'tachtonim. Hainu shetachtonim ma'ilo ma'adrege k'b'shayich l'fonam ma'ilo ma'atik m'oket the tachtonim. What does it mean tachtonim? V'ma'ilo ma'adrege, the lowest madrege in Ruchnias. V'hem ha'yesh v'achayim v'yiva b'chinas bittel shal yoda ideze yishoyer mizgalam ha'oyer Hashem oyer ein tzorch baruch bittel zeh tachlis v'yisoy da Torah v'amitzvahs. Kamashkotzav, as the pasuk says, "Veitzavena Hashem lasas kol hachukim ha'edel liyiras Hashem." It's a beautiful thing. The Rebbe is mitzayin to the Maimel with the Torah. It's an unusual thing. We talk about it many times. That Chassidus we see in Kabbalah. We spoke about it this Sunday, last week. Okay, that the Pshat Nemes Drush Soid. That Rizal said, "Brasi Yitzayt Afasisim." That Afasisim Asav is Atzilus Soid and Asisim is Asiyah. The Rebbe says that sometimes in Pshat after you see the deepest Soid, and through Soid sometimes you get the Pshat. And you see it before Mamish in a lot of Sukkim. For example, the pasuk that we talk about all the time is that Tachas Shalamada Shamalkecha B'Simcha B'Tuv Leiv B'Reiv Kollel. Rashi says that it means when things are going good, you should have served when things are busy. But the Rizal said no. You read the pasuk, the Pshat in the pasuk. Tachas Ashaloy Avadas Hashem Alakecha B'Simcha B'Tuv Leiv. That the worst thing a yid could do. Just about alive. That's the worst thing a Jew could do. The best thing a Jew could do, it's the greatest day in my life. Sad Moededik, Gimmel Tammuz, Mashiach is about to come. I'm busy, every minute is special. It's amazing. So, the Rizal says that's the Pshat in the Pasuk. That is the Pshat in the Pasuk. Here is a Pasuk also, that all the Meforshim, it says, the Eibishter gave us all the mitzvahs, Liyiras Hashem, so all the Meforshim learn it's like a Pasuk, Sarseu v'Dershev. They learn it fadreit that in order to do the chukim you have to have yira. The Alter Rebbe says no. The Alter Rebbe says in Tanya and also in the Torah Barichas, Veitzavena Hashem lasas is kol hachukim ha'ela. Why did the Eibishter give us the chukim? Which chukim is Torah? Liyiras Hashem. How does a human being have real yira? Chakito. You have a little bit of yira. That's not real yira. That's what the Alter Rebbe says. So the chicken and the egg, which one's first? If I have chokhmah, you tell me that's not real chokhmah. You have to have first yira. If I have yira, that's not real yira. You have to have first chokhmah. So what am I supposed to do? The Alter Rebbe says it's yira tator, which is taking yira. Whatever level, there's hundreds of people. But me and you are working, Mekadosh Matz, Malamata, we're working on a zuzeh. We're working on our yira. Then we get to chokhmah, which is chokhmah satoira, or whatever it is in Tanya, talk about many levels. But one of the things out there, it says chukim is learn Torah. After Yid learns Torah, through that he's zoicha malmaila. They give him yidei Eloah. That's a gift malmaila. They give him a gift. Veitzavenu Hashem lasas es kol hachukim ha'ela liyira es Hashem. When you do the mitzvahs in general, befrat chukim ha'ela, which is learning Torah, you're zoicha to get yira. You're zoicha to get yira through the learning Torah. Zesha Torah mitzvahs nitna lamatu medvarim gashmim l'neshama kishom l'veshes v'guf gashmi davka kedei shehabchu hayesh la'ayim v'yasev kli lelakus. So the bottom line is that the Eibishter wanted that it should be a dira b'tochtonim davke. The Eibishter made that a yid, through doing mitzvahs and learning Torah, he's zoche to get yid. Hine kemoishe b'maisa adam aleim nitztab etzivu b'hetzim l'kechoyse b'efsheroyse l'ad l'ad min akal l'kov v'kenu b'mayla so shebehem yayla machal l'chol gam madreg l'madreg l'etapas v'oila etapas v'oila, that a person is always going higher. Ki b'schar v'gam b'schar nitel l'loisen l'koyach l'kabel schore, that the Eibishter gives a yid a koyach to get this schar. Shemezachim margil nois ma'at ma'at l'kabel oil ruchni v'gila l'kus shezeh schar amiti oilach v'godol yoyse v'yoyse. Levad memikrim yoyse min haklal v'rosh shosh agilu shaloi l'fiyerech for maybe eis matan toida or yitzis mitzrayim. Usually the Eibishter wants that a person should be a vessel to understand and take in the bigger light, and therefore it's a slow process. But there is a Yotzim called Eibishter revealed himself to Klal Yisrael, Ala Yamsuf. He revealed himself to Matan Torah. But the Eibishter wants that the world should be purified. Ki b'klolos abriya b'ikro heleches mizbareres v'mishtalemes. Ela she'ata mizbareres madreges anamucha she'abriya chines raglayim v'aklayim. V'chein amar azal v'mishenim k'malachim ono k'bnei anoshim. I know these words sound like just words, but if you read these three lines, the Rebbe is saying the opposite of what you always think. Mama Chazal said, "Im Rishonim K'malochim Adam Ne'an Enesh Rishonim K'Enoshim Ono K'Chamor Lo K'Chamor Shapinchel V'Roy." Oh yo, so you need this adoidois. But you have to read the way what the Rebbe is saying. It's just the other way around. The Rebbe is saying in the early generations they were already purified. Chinas Rosh Moich. Me and you don't have to take. Don't worry about that. Rosh Moich and the big tzaddikim took care of that. Me and you have to finish the Pachim Ktan. The big Berudim were already in this bar. You don't have to redo it. Don't worry about it. Leave it there. Don't worry about it. The last of the great Rosh Yeshivas took care of that. The Chaim Brisker took care of it. Don't worry. Me and you, it's not our job to come up with a new mahalach how to learn Gemara. Don't worry. Chaim took care of that. Me and you have to finish B'chinas Raglayim V'Akvayim. Whatever is Raglayim V'Akvayim the Kedusha, me and you have to purify. Thursday night we were learning a story about the Rebbe Marash, who there was a chassid Rebbe, he was sick from Daigas, and he was thinking, you know what, I failed at being a businessman, I'll be a Goan Otzim, he was an expert in Choshemish, but I'll be a Rav. And all of a sudden the door knocks, and the Mishamish of the Rebbe Marash walks in. The Rebbe told me to tell you that he knows what you're thinking and you're wrong. Should be moyer shalat halalei. And they probably shake the guilt. I told him what to do. So they're in the last few moments of Zolus. It's not the pshat. The way that Rebbe sees it is that the world gets purified more and more. Maybe there's a veneer in front of our eye, we don't see it. And when the whole picture is put together, we'll see it. But right now, we only have to be mavara the last few things that aglayim v'akvayim. Sometimes there is a setback spiritually in the individual and also in the world. The Eibishter gave Bechira Chofshis, a person can have a setback, and the world can have a setback. It's not like if I have a setback, the world has a setback, because there is a chelik in the world which is my responsibility. And therefore, when I have a setback, the chelik in the world that has a shaykhs to me has a setback. Okay. The Rebbe is trying to say that there's not two separate things, the Kabbalah Schar and the Shleimus. It's intertwined. It's like Schar Mitzvah. That the Shleimus of a human being and the Schar of a human being is the same thing. And basically, why does it have to be Tchias HaMesim? Because that's the ultimate of the Eibishter's plan. The Eibishter's plan should be Dira V'Tachtonim. So if you're going to say that the neshama has to go up to Al Yoinim to get Kabbalah Pnei Ashchina, so that's you're misunderstanding the whole thing. The whole thing the Eibishter wanted, the Dira should be B'Tachtonim. Machlol Shlosh Zmanim. There's three Zmanim. Olam Haza Yemais Ashich Tchias HaMesim. Olam Haza is Man Malchama. Olam Haza is there's a war. Ben Ayeshva Ruchni Atoy Varav Lum Lum Yemes Leponim and Atzeach Atoy Lupam Chulu. There's a war, and sometimes we have the upper hand, and sometimes in our life we don't have the upper hand. But it doesn't matter because we get up and we give him another punch. It's like a wrestling. Their whole life we're always wrestling, and we try to get up and continue. However, you might say Mashiach. Shishlimu b'nei Yisrael asamachami b'vara atoyv min Rabbi Yufra derama atoyv b'yifokum min galusa. Az yagiyu hem l'shleimus ha'adam k'moshe yakoydem chetei tzadas shelo yiyu Yisrael tachas shlita ilona d'toyv v'ra. Aval yeshna adayin l'sitra achra ba'olam ba'erev rav. There is still Erev Rav in the world. When moving Shemamela is Deze Yesh Chitson and Gam Shlemas Bnei Yisrael. V'lachein kol elo achayim b'moisa Mashiach yomusu koydem tchias hamesu. Because the world is not b'shlemas. V'rach achek achikuma, that's what Chazal say, that everyone that's alive, it's funny, this Teshuvah, the Rebbe is going to say, absolutely everyone must die. After the Rebbe became Rebbe, the Rebbe said at least 101 times that you could do it through Nafshikov al-Kaltiyah. This is as a going Otzim writing Api Maimah Chazal what has to be. But as a Rebbe, the Rebbe decided that anyway. I digress. Let's go back.
1 second. Sheshlimu b'nei Yisrael b'milchama. This on Iran.
The Rebbe died.
What?
The Rebbe died.
If me and you are sitting here, Chazal say that Mazarim b'chayim afu b'chayim. Me and you are learning this. So then Chazal says, so it's always of David is Bekeva. So if me and you are learning it, they're learning it with us. Yeah. So what happens when Moshe Mashiach is a Chidush from the Rebbe? That it's not like that. There is still evil in the world. There is still Ra. It's like Koydem Chetei Tzadas. There was a Nachash, there was a Ra, but it was the problem with Adam Rishon was that he made that everything's intertwined. Sometimes in our own mind, you can't figure out, you want to do something. Is it, what's my motivation? Is it good or bad? The problem is the good and the bad is always intertwined. And it's very hard to extract the good from the bad. The Indian of Yemos Mashiach is that we can see whatever is good and whatever is bad. That's why the Ikar Indian of doing mitzvahs is B'Moshe Mashiach. Misham Nasa Kemitzvahs Ritzaynecha. And Lamai, there's a long thing in the Zohar that it says that the Erev Rav, they're really going to have. That's what the Alter Rebbe says. The Alter Rebbe says that all the Yidden are going to chassidus. When Mashiach comes, all Pnimis HaTorah. The Alter Rebbe asks, Hayevola Dish, Sheyedei Hilchas Shchita, V'yishchet B'li Sheyidre Ismeyatzmai. A man is going to be born and know how to shech and not do drasa if he didn't learn. The Alter Rebbe says, from Pnimis and no Torah, he'll know the nigla of the Torah. We spoke about it many times. Who's going to go to the Lubavitcher Yeshivas? The Erev Rav. That's what the Alter Rebbe says. Sorry, I'm bad. You said my uncle, my great uncle was a Talmud Chacham, and he just they had his yard set. His son came. I wanted to tell him the story. There's a Choshev Erov, very very Choshev Erov, that lives here in Flatbush. And I met him. I had a big shaykh with him, and he told me, I knew your great uncle. He was a Goan Otzim. I don't know if in this generation there was another Goan. There was one Chesaron. He was a Lubavitcher. But he says, I'll tell you one thing. Right now, he's in Gan Eden with Allah Litvish Rosh Yeshivas. So when I came home, I told my father couldn't stop laughing. He said that's mine. The biggest thing is to be in Gan Eden with Litvish Rosh Yeshivas. But I'm joking. The back to the Nekuda, the part is that the Alter Rebbe says that a Yid must be Misyageh and learning Nigla the Torah. Why? Because when a Yid is Misyageh to learn Nigla the Torah, that's what separates the Ra from the Torah. The more you Misyageh in Limud Torah Niglis, you separate the Ra from the Torah. So you have a question, which is from Sitra Achra, which doesn't allow that we should see the Emes in Torah, and then you think and you break through, and you break the Klipo, and you come in to see the Pri and the Oy Kitoiv, the Torah. So, and that helps in the Neshama to separate the Ra from the Torah. But Mashiach will come, by most of the Yidden, there won't be an Isarvus of Toivera. It won't be necessary to be Mesiageya Belimud Nigla de Betoira. And the Yidden will have the Kabbalah Schar to learn Pnimius Atoira. But the Eid of Verav, which by them is still going to be Benafsham, a mixture of Verav and Toiv, they'll have to be Mesiageya Belimud Nigla de Toira. The Rebbe is saying here, so that because it's not the pshat. Oh, those eight of Rav, they have a mix. It's their issue. It's like today there's a in vogue. It's your issue. It's his issue, not my issue. So, but it's not true because the whole world is impacted by this. Like Shmulik just told the other day, the story with the drilling the hole in the boat, right? So we're in a big boat. So if the eight of Rav have a taruvas a toivera, the Shema Mino, if the oil was so big, then it has to be that it affected the whole world in a way that there wouldn't be even eight of Rav. The fact that the eight of Rav are struggling to separate the Rav from the Toiv, Shema Mino, that also we're affected by it. So therefore, V'sham Nasa Kemitzvah Seretzenecha, that the Iker Inyan of Kiyum HaMitzvah is man of Yemoisa Mashiach. The Meshach Yemoisa Mashiach, Atzim Yis'al al Devidosa B'sul Mashlemus, Shelachem Yemoisa Mashiach, Uzman Dayem Lasoisam, V'adarab, Ozu Iker Ayem Lasoisam, V'tachlis HaShleimus. Moisa V'zavoylam Atchiyah, Shiav Ruach Atum Kollel Menoritz, V'oin Chet Misa B'olam, then there won't be Misa B'olam. Kekodesh Baruch Hu Yishchet LaYetzarim Al-Chamavis. The Yitzhahara, which Gemara says Yetzarim Al-Chamavis, the same thing. The Eibush is going to shecht them. Ozi Yetachel Shleimus Mina Adam. The Tachel Shleimus of human being will be there. Lo Yirak Kefirech Abdos of Eschore and Lamashanois of Matona Malamayla. Also as a Matona. But the Chem Mitzvah is Betelis Lo Betchis HaMesim. Because the avoid of the person, what I need to do, I already did be Moisa Mashiach. And whatever is going to happen, Betchis HaMesim is going to be whatever the Pshat is, the Mitzvah Betelis. We're not going into what the Pshat is in Mitzvah Betelis. So whatever the Pshat is, because I finished my El Tzadikim Yoshua and Tereseim Beresheim Venenem Eziv Ashchina Shach Shigir Al Tach Tzashlemus Bakav Aschal Nal B'Yos Sheim Lan Amusik B'Zeh Venirmez B'Milas At Tereseim Beresheim Venenem Eziv Ashchina B'Mokam Achin is Bar Pirish Sherem Azav Al Einen Negei Kol Kakul Yonenu, which is befedish in the Rambam Hilchos Teshuvah, which says that Tereseim Beresheim means the Yeda, he says, just like it says Simchas Olam Al Roshim. The Rambam says, what if Simcha is not a crown that you can put on your head? It means that it's like a person's happy, and it's like when you see a happy aura around the person. Same thing, God. The same b'shem is that the Torah they're going to learn is going to be surrounding them like in a Torah. The Rebbe says in Orah 10 that you should look in Shilas Teshuvah Heishav Moshe Siman Aleph. This is the first Teshuvah of the Yismach Moshe, which I was talking in introduction. This is Toshin Zion. The Rebbe wrote this in 1947. I bet you that at that time the Sefer was a Yekara Metzias. Was a Yekara Metzias. That the Rebbe the Rebbe probably didn't even own the Sefer. He was a Beis Medrash, and the Rebbe saw the Sefer, and he probably read it from cover to cover, and he was very taken by the first Teshuvah. He was buying in the first Teshuvah. Let's look in the Ha'orah 7. Today, which a little bit of this I mentioned a few minutes ago. It's a very sharp losh. The Rebbe says, if you look in the Ramban, but I wasn't zoichet to understand the words of the Ramban. Wow. The Rebbe says, I wasn't zoichet to understand the words of the Ramban.
That's a very statement.
That's a very strong statement.
Wow.
So it obviously made me very curious to read this Ramban. Why not? So basically, the Ramban says, the pasuk says, the Ramban says it's talking about Yemoisa Mashiach. The Yemoisa Mashiach, that when the Eibush created the world, the person has a rishus to be a tzaddik or rosh. Aval Yemoisa Mashiach, it won't be that way. It won't be that way. Lo yisava aleb l'mashein neroi v'lo yachbetz b'klal v'yamila niskeres kam. And v'yosher adam ezman hazel asher hoyo koydem chet adam rishon. So till now that's very nice. Shoyo oisa b'tiva masher hoyo lasses v'lo yile b'ritzoyin adove v'hachpchoy. Then he continues that that's the bittul of the Yetzirah, And he says that that's the pshat. He says that's the pshat in the pasuk when asati lechem leiv chodesh v'ruach chadosha. That v'zeh shomer azal v'giyu shonim asher toim lebehem em v'chayfetz elu yimoysa Mashiach she'em em l'schus v'leichoyva. That in the days of Mashiach there will be no schus and no choyva, because if a person doesn't have schus and choyva, it's predicated on freedom of choice. If I have a choice to eat kosher and non-kosher, I decide to eat kosher, I get rewarded for that. But if the only thing available is kosher, why would I get rewarded for it? If I have the choice to do an aved and I do a mitzvah, then I get rewarded. Otherwise, well, the same thing with punishment. That's why the Rambam has a whole problem with punishments in Mitzvim God. If it was predestined for me to do the aveda, it's not fair that Hashem should punish me because this was my destiny. But we believe it's not true that a person has bechira. But a Yosef, Moishe Mashiach, a person is kilo has no bechira, but he wants to do good. So therefore, that's the Rebbe says. So the Rambam says Ramban. The Rebbe says that lo zachisi to understand these words in Rambam. Why? The Rebbe says that this is according to the Rishon, according to the Ramban. Why did Adam Rishon we say that Adam Rishon had 6 mitzvahs before the Chet, and it's mashma there was skar v'oinish. But you're telling me that the human beings are going to be like Adam Rishon Kodem Chet, and there will be no skar v'oinish. The main thing that Rebbe obviously has a problem with it is because we always saying v'sham nasa kemitzvah tzeinecha. In Musaf, in davening or Yom Tov, we say v'sham nasa kemitzvah tzeinecha. V'sham nasa kemitzvah tzeinecha means that we're looking forward that the days of Mashiach, that's when we're going to do the mitzvahs. We're going to build the base of mikdash. You do the mitzvahs properly. If you're telling me that time there's no schar v'oinish because betiva a person, so it's like almost hollow. The whole thing of we're building the base of mikdash, we're bringing korbanos. The Rebbe says no, really that this thing Shana Mashem Bam Chayfetz is really the Moisa Mashiach. There's an Nefedish Gemara that the Gemara says. Like this is what the Ramban quotes. The Gemara says that there is the pasuk says Yigia Shana Mashatayma Ainli Bahem Tefes, that there is years that you'll say I have no chayfetz, I had no need in the mitzvahs. Ramban says means, and the Gemara says it means Yemais Mashiach. Ramban says means I have no need in these mitzvahs. What do you mean? I don't. Obviously, I'm eating kosher. I'm not eating treif. But I have no need means if you didn't tell me to do it, I would anyway do it. So that's the way that Ramban teaches. So the Rebbe says that that's not a shayla. Even though it's a befedish Gemara, you could teach like Rashi. And Rashi says that what's the pshat? Lois chuz v'loy choyve means loy dover liskes v'loy shekolam ashirim v'loy choyve la'ametz v'likbetz yad. If you want to give it tzedakah, you're never going to find the only give tzedakah to. You're going to cry. People are going to cry. I wish I could tell this to people now, where we're trying to get the money together for Beis Menachem Mendel's building. A few days you're going to cry. You're going to come beg me to take the money, and we'll reject it. Doesn't matter how nice the check is, but we're not going to take it. So Rabbi Isaac.
Anyway, get to this point.
So that's the pshat that Rashi says. Rashi says that that's the pshat. Rashi says that that's the pshat. But and the Rebbe says to look in the Agos Yavitz. So again, for me, I'm just looking at it's a look my Sfaria. I looked at the Sfaria. I right away found the that the Agos Yavitz is moeded to what the Rebbe is moeded. I'm just saying it just shows you the honest. So maybe the Ramban sometimes terms are interchangeable. Sometimes we say Yemos Mashiach, but we mean Tchias HaMesim. Maybe that's what the Ramban was talking about. The Rebbe says v'doichik, but it's a little bit doichik. That's not what the Ramban said. But otherwise, the Rebbe says that it's mistaber that there's 3 tkufas. There's the tkufa of the epic battle, which is manazeh. There's the tkufa where there is Rabba Oilo, but it's not intertwined around the toiv, which is the complication that we have in our life that comes from the Chet Eitz Hadas. And therefore, it's so hard. It's like the story that Rebbe said with the Motel Chernobyl. He tried to figure out what was the voice of the Yetzer Tov and what's the voice of the Yetzer Hara. We'll talk about it another time, that story. But the Rebbe loved that story, Reb Nachum Chernobyl. And the Rebbe told the story twice, because sometimes even at tzaddiks, like where's the voice of the Yetzer Tov? That's where the Ra is so intertwined in the Torah. Mashiach, it's not going to happen. And that's why the Rebbe says in the Geras Chavav that we could learn Nigla the Torah through Nista the Torah. Because Nigla the Torah is Akasha and Ateres. It's intertwined. The Klippa is holding back and doesn't allow us to see the Amitiyas of Torah. The Erev Rav, they're going to deal. They're going to have a Torah Ra and Torah. But still, there is Rav Torah Oilam. And also the fact that the Erev Rav is around affects us too. And then there is Tchis HaMesim, which is the ultimate with Ebesh Shechs Yetzer Hara. And then there'll be the ultimate of Dira B'Tachtoinim. So the Schar and the Shleimus Mina Anushi it's the same thing. But it has to be Tchis HaMesim, because Tchis HaMesim is really the ultimate. Tchis HaMesim is saying, Tchis HaMesim is the idea of Dira B'Tachtoinim. So if you believe in, basically, that's why the Chatzidus goes with the Ramban. If you believe in Dira B'Tachtoinim, you have to believe in Tchis HaMesim being the ultimate. It's just a hand and a block. That's Leonis Daiti, what the Rebbe is saying.
Rabbi, they left the Erev Rav? No,
I don't know. I don't want to say that. The Erev Rav is a group of 100 people that are hiding under Iraq and Afghanistan. All the Yidden are Amech Kulim Tzadikim. The Erev Rav is a couple of, I don't know. We don't know who the Erev Rav is. So, as we say, that Mashiach is not Elul Avi Shalom. It doesn't have Mishkochishin. It's Tama and Tama. Tama, not Maloshin Tuma. Maloshin. God blended in. Okay. I'm not. We're going to finish this Teshuvah either tonight or another time. It's Gimmel Tammuz, and I want to talk about two more things that have a shaykhis to the Rebbe. By the way, we learned the harder part of the Teshuvah. And the rest of the Teshuvah is actually much easier, because the Rebbe is going to go to is going to go into all the details of Tchis HaMesim. When is this man? When is the Mokim? How many bodies? Is he going to be dressed or undressed? Is there going to be a v'chulu? Like, it's going to go through about 10 different questions within Tchis HaMesim. So either we'll do it tonight or we'll do it next Sunday. We'll see. I don't know if the Olam will. Whenever the Olam wants.
Rabbi, the Shana Kodesh of the Rebbe is so strong, it's so beautiful.
Yeah, the Rebbe.
It's unbelievable.
Yeah.
It's a very nice thing.
Yeah. The Rebbe wrote it. This is not like the Sikhs that the Rebbe Magir. The Rebbe wrote it.
Teshuvah.
And the Rebbe wrote it as a Teshuvah. That's the beauty of this, and that's why you can be medayik in every word. The Rebbe wrote it. I wanted two things. One is, there's a lot of Sunday is contemporary Shas Ha'al. So I just want a little nugget, something that I remember always, even as a child. I had last night. I mentioned that I had Baruch Hashem B'schus. My father made sure that I had a book of Chutz on Sunday from 1981. And even though I used to come late to Fabrengens, but I had my Mokum Kavua. I came late once. Yud Aleph Nissen, Tavshem Mem Aleph. 1981. I came late to the Fabrengen, and it was already packed. It was played till the door. So I was a kid, so I went on people's heads, and they pushed me over, and I got to my place. At the Laila, I lost one shoe. I stood the whole Fabrengen with one shoe on and one shoe off. After the Fabrengen, I looked all around. Next day, I came to 770. I still didn't find the second shoe. So anyway, and there's a certain exactly the story of the Bajem exactly. So certain things as a child, you hear and you don't understand. Like I always thought when I was a child I understood the Fabrengens. I used to come back home and tell it to my mother, but as an adult, you understand you didn't, because they never spoke in Yiddish, they never spoke slowly, and they never said everything as though you explained it. But really didn't understand. But I remember many times there was this thing that Rebbe would raise his voice. Hareze b'bal toima. Hareze b'bal toima. It's a very funny halacha. It has to do with HIPAA laws, privacy laws, and halacha. The Rebbe put who knows halacha and Oira Chaim Simon Kuflan Vav buried in Amagan Abraham. Never do halacha shulchan. It is not to do with hilchas lashon hara moitzi shembra. It's a separate issue. Because sometimes information is nothing to do with lashon hara. It's not to do with chilus. It's information already. People know whatever. Work it out already with the Chafetz Chaim. Don't worry. Say this information I checked out with the Chafetz Chaim, and it's kosher v'yosher. It's kosher v'yosher. We're thrilled this week. There's a firm company that came out with cell phones called KV. It's flip phones, and we bought it for two of our children. They're going to traveling in Machayim. But it's flip phones, azoi kakosim. It's called KV, kosher v'yosher. KV, kosher v'yosher. It's a KV. So we bought two phones of Machayim. Kids can't put anything, whatever you put inside. It's even better than the iPhones with parental control. Moidadik, kosher v'yosher. So a person has a shtickle information, it's KV, it's kosher v'yosher. But it's not new lashon hara. But still, there's a din that the Rebbe always said, because the Rebbe would be upset. Sometimes the Rebbe would tell something, and it's a person yechidus, and a person would go tell other person. The Rebbe would say, if I want to tell someone Musar, I would tell him. Or the Fabrengen, the Rebbe would say something, and then they would say, the Rebbe would say 100 times, if I want, I could tell someone. I know how to use a phone. I know it's in my mouth. I know how to write a letter. Never say things in my name.
That's against the Rebbe.
It depends.
So the Rebbe, a quote, I remember this, and the Rebbe used to get aggravated. It's halacha. Where do we learn this deed? It's a Gemara Meforeshes. If Gemara says in Yuma, it's a funny limud. Daf Dalad in Yuma. And again, you could see it in Shulchan Aruch. It's in Oira Chaim Simon Kuf Nun Vav. It's brought in the Magen Avraham. The Alter Rebbe brings the Sifri Dalad. But where is it in the Gemara? The Gemara in Yuma in Daf Dalad. The Gemara says, Omer Reb Musya. Menayin lo medaber lechaveir shu bebal yoyman. Ad sheyoyman lo leichem oyer. Shenemar veidaber Hashem lo moed leimer. That the Eibusha spoke to Moshe Moel Moed leimer to tell the Yidden. The Marsha says that because originally every time the Eibusha said leimer, it was like ask the Yidden if they're interested in it. This was really after Mount Torah, so why was it leimer? Leimer means if I don't tell you to tell them, you're not allowed to tell them. That's the way the Marsha learns, but Rashi doesn't learn that way. Rashi has a very fancy limud. The Rashi says, Talmud loimer leimer. Loi emoy. Leimer is two words. Loi emoy. Vaydaber Hashem al Moshe leimer. It's funny, Drash. That Vaydaber Hashem el moed leimer. Loi emoy. I'm telling you something, but never repeat it until I tell you have permission to repeat it.
So it's lapid vav, flow to him.
It's the word leimer is dashed as if the aleph is twice. Because when you say something, like when you say something, yeah, it's loy emoyer. Leimer is loy emoyer. That the Eibusha said, I'm telling it to you, but you have no permission to tell it over until I give you the shoes. And the Masha says, why does it actually have to have such a fancy limud? I think the pshat is poshut, because if it was just that Eibusha said to Moshe, say it to the Yidden, I would say that's hilchas derech eretz. But now that it's a limud, loy emoyer, it's not hilchas derech eretz. The halacha, because it's a halacha gemura, and it's brought tak in Agos. Even though the Ramach doesn't bring it hilchas days, Agos Maimonides brings it in the name of Rabbeinu Tam and the end of Perek Dalet hilchas days. So in other words, the Balei Tosfos felt that this is halacha gemura. It's not stam. The Rambam tak doesn't bring it. Maybe the Rambam learned that it's hilchas derech eretz, and he doesn't have to bring every Maimon Chazal, which is like, it's good practice, but it's not a law. It's not a law in Shulchan Aruch. But the Balei Tosfos felt no, like Rashi probably. It's not the hilchas derech eretz. It's halacha gemura. It's loy toima, loy toima. You're not allowed to tell it over. So
I think we're not sure all the time.
That's not because the Torah. It's we assume it's a piece of information. Torah, we assume, like he said, that maybe a person came to the Fabrenga Matzah Shabbos. He said because you posted on your status the story of Reb Shmuel Brin. I can't believe it. In the schus of you posting it, he came to the Fabrengen. So it's a Moedik story. It's unbelievable. So that's not the Baal Toimer. Baal Toimer is a piece of information. A piece of information. So Amol, a doctor, a lawyer, he could tell over Yedazach. And today there's a sensitivity to the idea of a Baal Toimer. So I'm saying there is such a concept in halacha. Now the parameters of the halacha, the time is short. I just figured, I remember the Fabrengen, the Rebbe quoting this, and it's an obscure halacha. Mela, one more thing. There is a sefer that just came out, Heichel Baal Shem Tov. They come out every 6 months. I buy the sefer. Why? Because I know they print of 300 copies. Then they'll be out of print, and then they'll take 10 years till I'll upload it on the Yitzhak Hoffman. So I want to have it, so I buy it. So they found a guy that was in 770 from 1940 till 1951. He was there at every Fabrengen, and he made a neshima of every Fabrengen, of every story that was said. Most of the Fabrengens were by the Rebbe, because his father wanted him gehasen as a Fabrengen. For the Rebbe was present by every Fabrengen. Not always the Rebbe spoke, but sometimes other people spoke, and the Rebbe made comments. So I want to share from one Fabrengen, because it's negated to something that we were dealing with. So this is a Fabrengen Yud Aleph Tevis Tafshin Zayin, 1947. There's a Yid, a Choshev Yid that are big. He comes into the Fabrengen and he tells the story of Rebbe Hillel Paritcher. The Rebbe said, "You're not telling the story the correct way. I'll tell it to you from my father." Rebbe Hillel Paritcher wanted to become a Chabad Chosid. So he went to his Rebbe, the Mordechai Chernobyl, Zef Gezegenen. The Mordechai told him, "Don't go. If you're going to go, that means he'll be 6 feet under." But he had such a taiva that he had no choice, and he went to the Mittel Rebbe to Hichsidus. When it was the winter, he wanted to say, this is Rebbe Isaac, he wanted to see the Alter Rebbe, he never saw him. He was hiding under a bed, and he said, "Meseches Erchem, a younger man, Takashe." No, Mittel Rebbe, and then Tzemach Tzedek. Then Tzemach Tzedek, told him to go around to give broches, kulu. So then he was in a sled, and they were going down a mountain, and the sled slid, and he went flying out, and he went flying on the snow. When he came the first time to the Mittel Rebbe, the Rebbe said, "Mit dem bist du abgekommen." That this thing that you fell out of the wagon, and you fell, and he fell on the snow like this. So the tzaddik goizer, it has to happen. So Yosef, Martin Chernobyl said, "Yuzang Pipikaroiv." So that's the Rebbe said that but this is Yosef. So the Rebbe said, "The Weil, I'll tell you another story about the Rebbe Hillel." The Rebbe Hillel came to Tzemach Tzedek and said, "I'd love to hear a maimer. I'm chalashim." Tzemach Tzedek didn't answer him, whatever, and he didn't understand what the Tzemach Tzedek said. He thought Kilo that Tzemach Tzedek told him, "Give me a few minutes." So he went out respectfully, and he was waiting. He waited a whole night, and Tzemach Tzedek was sitting and learning, and he didn't realize that someone's sitting in the other room. In the morning, when he walked out, he said, "What are you doing here?" So he said, "I'm polishing for the maimer." So Tzedek said, "Come in," and he told him a maimer. So that's another. Then the Rebbe said, "I'll tell you another story." There was a story that there was once a sifa in Petersburg, and a sifa Zerabonim, and there's something that came up from the Alter Rebbe and again Sakoidish, and someone tried to quote it and he didn't know the lashon. No one knew, and there was a lot of Lubavitcher Rebbe there. No one knew the lashon Baal Peh. Reb Chaim Brisker stood up and said the Teshuvah Baal Peh. Reb Chaim Brisker stood up and he said the Teshuvah Baal Peh. He said it from the Tanya, but no one remembered. They were debating about something in the Tanya, and they said, "What's the law?" They didn't have the sefer.
Lord Tanya?
He just gave us mila b'mila, ois b'ois. So this is a story. This is that story that Rebbe said. Then this guy said, "Oh, I heard a story I heard a story. There was a Rishon Chosid. His name was Avram Horenstein in Kyiv. He was a very rich man. He was in Marinbad, and Reb Chaim Brisker was there. It was like a vacation place. It was a place that had sanatoriums, pool that people never that needed their fuas saguf would go there. Bathhouses, so there was a minion there that Reb Chaim used to like to daven Kabbalah Shabbos early. Reb Chaim flag daven and Kabbalah Shabbos a mind of Erev Shabbos free. And so this chosid, Reb Avram went over to him. He said like this: Meile ir lein krishma shpete bizman, aval hema balabatim loy makpidim. He said, you know the score, so you daven early and you're laying krishma at night. But these balabatim that are davening in your minyan, they don't know. So, like, it's not nice. But Reb Chaim Lekpeda, Reb Chaim got angry at him. He said, Ayer Rebbe is davening it in sight. They davening the Tzvei Azegen nach Mittag. Your Rebbe is davening till 2 o'clock in the afternoon. Mir verlassen sich al Rabbeinu Tam. We're relying on the Rabbeinu Tam. That's it. Reb Chaim got angry at him. That's what he said. So this Reb Avram answered, so they write in the bottom, they don't understand what Reb Chaim Brisker meant. So I'm a little bit upset that Hechem Hashem could write Tzorich. What's the Kavanah? The Kavanah is Pashim. The Kavanah is, because we had a shir about this Wednesday night, and Wednesday night I opened the Sefer because it was on a pile. I said I have to. And I started reading, and I got the story Tezayin. I said, "Wow, what Kavanah? Kavanah is simple." The first Tosfos in Shas, the Rabbeinu Tam says, "I don't understand. I see either lachadavening might have early Krishna, and even though Rashi says that your yotza with the parsha achas you say before you go to sleep, but the Rabbeinu Tam disagrees. You have to say 3 parshas." So he says, the Rabbeinu Tam says that according to the Yehuda, that's man mincha is till plaga mincha. So after Plaga Mincha is man ma'id, and also Krishma. And you yotze min atoy the Krishma shalamita. And even though the Shechonor paskins against the Rabbeinu Tam, so the Reb Chaim said, not so bad. That's not so bad. I mentioned last night, my father, so he said that Takas are relying on this Rabbeinu Tam. My parents have this big thing of they give out matzah before Pesach. My father buys matzah in the order of $5,000-6,000. Shmura matzah. It's lots of people in my parents' house. That's why they come to our house because they can't anyway. So they set up. They're setting up by now 50 nursing homes. They set up a star. A lot of nursing homes say that we can't have a seder so late. So my uncle in Milano and of Bellino, he sees Hersha sometimes on the wines. So he said, you know what? We could rely on the Rabbeinu Tam. Let's do the storm from at least from Plaga Mincha, which according to Rabbeinu Tam is Laila. So at least they're not going to eat the kazayis matzah otherwise anyway. So anyway, let them have something. So Reb Chaim said, we're relying on Rabbeinu Tam. So Nishkefela, but who are you relying on? That your Rebbe said davening shachris 2 o'clock in the afternoon. That was Reb Chaim he got under Reb Chaim's skin, and Reb Chaim got upset at him. So Reb Avram said, it was a Rebbe, his name was Reb Michal Zlotcher. Reb Michal